Keith Urban's recent string of unexpected changes did not initially worry his fans. Artistic evolution is a normal and expected part of any musician's journey. At first, these adjustments seemed routine, even captivating, as one observer noted while hoping to see him perform live, never having met him before. Compliments were also given to those present. However, as months passed, the modifications continued. A long-time backing band quietly vanished. Certain on-stage behaviors began to raise eyebrows, and as rumors of his separation from Nicole Kidman intensified, the transformation became impossible to dismiss. What once looked like standard career moves started to feel like pieces of a larger puzzle, leaving fans wondering what was really behind it all. Before the fame, awards, and sold-out arenas, Keith Urban experienced a childhood rooted in hardship. Born in New Zealand in 1967, he moved with his family to Australia as a toddler, eventually settling in Brisbane, where life was far from glamorous. His parents ran a small convenience store and lived in cramped quarters behind it, making do with very little. Yet even that description fails to capture the full extent of their struggles. Nicole Kidman once spoke openly about their humble beginnings, calling them truly hardscrabble. Despite the polished image they present today, both came from nearly nothing. For Keith, this meant growing up on a farm in a shed with no separation between living spaces, no bedrooms, no privacy, just for people sharing one small area. Sometimes the family depended heavily on the kindness of others just to get by. Such an upbringing leaves a deep mark. It builds a certain hunger. Keith would later say that every brick in his home represents a gig he played to earn it, reflecting how hard he worked to build his life. Financial struggle was not the only challenge. His home life carried a heavier weight. His father battled alcoholism, shaping the household atmosphere in ways beyond money. Keith described it as a place devoid of intimacy and emotional connection. Discipline was strict, sometimes crossing into physical punishment for him and his brother. What makes this more complicated is how long it took him to process it all. For years, he believed he deserved that treatment, carrying that mindset into adulthood. Only much later did he begin to understand the truth. Adding to this was a persistent silence. He could not recall ever hearing his father say, "I love you," while growing up. Yet amid all that tension, one thing brought them together: music. His father loved country music deeply, and that passion influenced Keith early on, becoming their shared language, the only place where genuine connection existed. That connection would shape everything to come. As a child, Keith's first instrument was not a guitar, but a ukulele he received at age 4. Music surrounded him constantly. His father played drums, so rhythm and sound were everyday presences. Then came a pivotal moment. At 5 years old, his parents took him to see Johnny Cash perform. For most children, that might have been just a fun night out, but for Keith, it was transformative. Watching that performance, he could already picture himself on that stage. The dream felt not distant, but real. By 7, he had picked up a guitar and began performing wherever possible, at talent shows, local events, and small gigs. At 9, he appeared on an Australian TV show called Pot of Gold, a significant achievement for a child his age. But early success did not bring easy praise. After one performance, a judge named Bernard King delivered a harsh critique, dismissing country music as mediocre and telling Keith to focus on real music instead. He also insulted his singing. For a moment, that could have crushed him. Instead, Keith focused on one word the judge used: intrinsically. When he asked his mother what it meant, she told him it meant he was a natural. That was all he needed. He ignored the rest and pressed on. At 10 years old, another major challenge arose. The family home burned to the ground. Miraculously, no one was inside, but the loss was total. When Keith walked back into the house afterward, everything was blackened, soaked, and silent, just hours after a normal morning. Such moments stay with a person. But what remained with him just as strongly was what followed. The community rallied together. It was not only organizations offering help, but neighbors bringing clothes, food, and even opening their homes. That experience left a lasting impression, showing him what people can do for one another in the worst of times. By his teenage years, music had become everything to him. At 14, he started his first band. At 15, he made a bold decision. He wanted to leave school and devote himself entirely to music. He explained to his mother that he could already be performing multiple nights a week, earning money and gaining real experience. This was not a passing phase. It was his future. Against all odds, she agreed. That choice changed everything. Keith immersed himself in the Brisbane music scene, playing long nights in bars and clubs, sometimes performing for hours. He did not limit himself to one style, playing whatever the crowd wanted, from rock to top 40 hits. Success came at a price. In 1991, he quietly released his self-titled debut album in Australia through EMI. It was not a global success, but it resonated at home. Country fans took notice, and soon he landed a major opportunity, opening for Slim Dusty, one of Australian music's most respected figures. That moment held deep meaning. Years earlier, he had been just a child waiting in line for Slim's autograph on sheet music for Lights on the Hill. Now they were touring together. Near the end of that tour, a brief conversation left a lasting impact. Keith, young and exhausted, mentioned there were only a few shows left. Feeling relief was near. But Slim saw things differently, growing quiet as he reflected on having only a few more chances to connect with his audience. That perspective shift hit Keith hard. He realized he had begun taking the stage for granted, changing his view of performing from a routine to a privilege. Yet Australia could only take him so far. He knew that to truly challenge himself, he needed to go to the heart of country music. So in 1992, he moved to Nashville, Tennessee. The city felt right immediately, but comfort did not bring success. Breaking into that scene proved harder than anything he had faced. After a few years of grinding, he formed a band called The Ranch. When they signed with Capitol Records and released their album in 1997, it seemed everything was finally falling into place. This was meant to be the breakthrough. It was not. Life on the road became exhausting and discouraging. They traveled in a worn-out van, playing small shows to almost no one, watching their momentum fade. The experience drained him. Eventually, the band collapsed under the pressure. But even in that failure, something important emerged. His songwriting began to stand out. Artists like the Chicks picked up his work, recording tracks like Some Days You Got to Dance. Others followed, and the industry started recognizing that while the band had failed, Keith himself had something special. Capitol Records saw it too and gave him another chance, this time as a solo artist. Behind the scenes, however, a different story unfolded. Nashville was not only where his career was built, but also where things started to fall apart. Despite his early success in Australia, the pressure of restarting in America took a toll. Beneath his talent and ambition was someone battling deep insecurity and constant fear of failure. On stage, he felt unstoppable. Off stage, he felt completely disconnected, as if he belonged nowhere. That internal struggle opened the door to something darker. During a vulnerable moment early in his Nashville days, he was introduced to cocaine. A single decision slowly became a habit, then something far more consuming. At first, the downward spiral was not obvious, but over time it took control. A breakup only worsened things, pushing him further into isolation. He turned more heavily to drinking and drugs, trying to escape his feelings. Life became chaotic. He lived in a rundown place, often staying up all night, lost in addiction. There were haunting moments, early mornings when he was exhausted and desperate, searching for anything to keep the high going. It was a repeating cycle, each day blurring into the next. Touring with the Ranch only intensified this. He found himself caught between extremes, performing one night, then disappearing into days of heavy drug use. By the late 1990s, things reached a breaking point. Those years became some of the darkest of his life. By 1998, Keith could no longer continue. He consciously decided to step away and check into rehab. It was not an easy choice, but a necessary one. He would later describe his relationship with alcohol in a seemingly lighthearted way, calling himself allergic to it. But behind the humor lay a hard truth. Whenever he drank, things became dangerous. His time in treatment changed more than his habits. It reshaped his self-perception. A counselor explained that life is not about getting everything right, but about trying to move in the right direction. That perspective stuck. Following his band's collapse, he received a solo deal with Capitol Records. In 1999, he released his American debut album. This time, things felt different. Songs like Where the Blacktop Ends, You're Everything, and It's a Love Thing gained traction. Soon, but for the grace of God, gave him his first #1 hit in the United States. The album went platinum within months. As the new millennium began, Keith Urban had arrived. In 2001, he received the CMA Horizon Award, now known as Newcomer of the Year. It was a defining moment, reflecting how far he had come. From there, accolades continued, including multiple CMA awards for Grammy wins and a place on the Music City Walk of Fame. In 2005, Keith and Nicole Kidman met at the G-Day USA Gala in Los Angeles. Nicole felt drawn to him immediately, but Keith remained guarded, unsure if someone like her could truly want him. That hesitation stretched into 4 months of silence. Keith later admitted he had her number, but could not bring himself to dial it. Eventually, he pushed past his fear. On her 38th birthday, he appeared outside her New York apartment at 5 a.m. with a bouquet of gardenias. For Nicole, that was the moment it clicked. They married in Sydney in June 2006. But just 4 months later, Keith checked into rehab after a relapse, following an intervention led by Nicole. He admitted his actions nearly destroyed the marriage. Rumors of infidelity also surfaced, but they worked through it. By 2008, they welcomed daughter Sunday Rose, and 2 years later, Faith Margaret arrived via surrogate. Fatherhood became a turning point for Keith. Over the years, small moments revealed a more complicated reality. In 2014, Keith described their home as lively and loud, while Nicole noted he would sometimes retreat to a closet with his guitar to reset. By 2018, reports of strain emerged, but the couple worked through them. In September 2025, after nearly 2 decades together, news broke that the relationship had ended. It was not a sudden collapse, but a slow shift. Fans dissected every detail. Allegations of an affair surfaced, with internet speculation focusing on guitarist Maggie Ball after Keith tweaked lyrics and pointed to her during a Las Vegas performance. Maggie's father did not deny the rumors, and TMZ hinted at another woman. Keith addressed the gossip during a Nashville show, telling the crowd to stop reading too much into things. Country singer Alexandra Kay defended Maggie, calling the allegations false. Behind the scenes, Nicole cited irreconcilable differences, with sources saying she felt blindsided. In January 2025, Keith had also parted ways with his longtime bandleader Jerry Flowers and other core members, citing an inner voice urging change. By January 2026, the divorce was finalized. The custody agreement heavily favored Nicole. Keith would have their daughters 59 days a year, Nicole 306 days, with no child support. Keith had pushed for 50-50, but Nicole refused, citing logistics, as Keith's touring schedule made consistency difficult.